Part 1, The Abandoned Outcast. Dr. Kate Wilson wiped the sweat from her forehead as she pushed through another crowd of aliens in the marketplace of Trading Station Nexus 7. The air stank of exotic spices, fuel fumes, and something she couldn't quite identify. Her medical scanner had been beeping for the last 20 minutes, pulling her deeper into the station's less respectable areas. She was a veterinarian, specializing in alien species medicine. Most days, she treated minor injuries and common ailments. Today felt different. The biosign was weak. Very weak. Whatever creature was giving off that signal didn't have much time left. Kate followed the scanner's directions through narrower corridors where the lights flickered and the walls showed rust and damage. Other aliens gave her strange looks. Humans didn't usually come to this part of the station. Finally, the scanner led her to the waste disposal zone, basically a garbage dump where the station threw everything it didn't want anymore. The smell hit her first. Then she saw it. A massive wolf-like creature lay crumpled against a broken containment unit. Kate had seen the Lupra species before. They were proud warriors and traders, standing nearly 8 feet tall with thick gray fur and fierce amber eyes. But this one was different. Terribly different. Its fur was pure white. Not gray, not silver, but ghostly white. And that wasn't even the worst part. Covering every inch of the creature's body were thousands upon thousands of barnacles. Not the ocean barnacles from Earth, but something far more sinister. These were crystalline parasites that glowed faintly in the dim light. They clustered so thick that Kate could barely see the white fur underneath. Some were small as pebbles. Others had grown as large as her fist. The creature's chest rose and fell in shallow, painful gasps. It was dying right in front of her. Kate's hands moved on instinct. She activated her communicator. "This is Dr. Wilson. I need an emergency medical transport to Waste Disposal Section 7. Right now." Static crackled, then the station administrator's bored voice came through. "Negative on that request, Dr. Wilson. Our scanners show a Lupra albino in that location. That's classified as a no-contact situation according to station protocols." "What? There's a living creature here that needs help." "That's not our problem. Station policy clearly states." Kate didn't wait to hear the rest. She cut the connection and knelt down beside the dying alien. Up close it was even worse. The barnacles had burrowed into the skin. Some were pulsing slowly like tiny hearts. The creature was being eaten alive. Then its eyes opened. Instead of the fierce amber that Lupra normally had, these eyes were pale blue. Almost colorless. They stared at Kate with an expression that broke her heart. It wasn't fear. It wasn't even pain. It was acceptance. This creature had accepted that it was going to die here, alone, in a garbage dump. "Hey," Kate whispered. "I'm going to help you. Just hold on." The creature didn't respond. Maybe it couldn't. Maybe it didn't believe her. Kate heard boots on metal. Heavy footsteps approaching fast. Within minutes, 3 Lupra security guards appeared. Their gray fur was perfectly groomed, their uniforms crisp and clean. They looked like they'd stepped out of a military parade. They stared down at the albino with expressions of pure disgust. "Human, you need to step away from that thing immediately," the lead guard growled. His voice was deep and commanding. Kate stood up, positioning herself between the guards and the dying creature. "This individual needs immediate medical attention. I'm a licensed xenoveterinarian and—" "That is not an individual," the guard interrupted coldly. "That is an abomination. It was cast out from our homeworld 17 cycles ago. Cast out for good reason." "What reason?" Kate demanded. "What could possibly justify leaving someone to die like this?" The guard gestured at the white fur. "It was born cursed. Albinism is a genetic defect, a sign of weakness in the bloodline. Among the Lupra, we do not waste resources on the unworthy. This is our way. This is our culture." Kate felt her anger rising. She'd dealt with a lot of alien cultures in her career, and she'd learned to respect differences. But this wasn't culture. This was cruelty. "He's sentient," Kate said, keeping her voice steady. "He's clearly intelligent. He's suffering. And I'm not leaving him here to die." The second guard stepped forward. "You do not understand, human. The barnacles have been feeding on it for years. They've fused to its neural system. Removal would be impossibly painful and ultimately pointless. This creature is beyond saving. Nature is simply correcting a mistake." "Nature didn't put him in a garbage dump," Kate shot back. "You did." More aliens had started gathering now, drawn by the commotion. Kate saw representatives from half a dozen species. A tall crystalline Nexian floated closer, its body chiming softly as it moved. Resource allocation protocols are clear, the Nexian announced in its musical voice. Expensive medical procedures for genetically compromised individuals violate economic efficiency standards. It's simply logical. An insectoid creature with too many legs clicked its mandibles in agreement. Galactic Standard Procedure supports non-interference in natural selection processes. The human should respect established protocols. Kate looked around at all of them. At their cold, logical faces. At their complete lack of compassion. Then she looked back down at the dying albino, at those pale blue eyes still watching her. She made her decision. No, Kate said simply. She activated her emergency medical override codes and sent out a priority call. I'm taking him to my clinic. Anyone who tries to stop me can file a complaint with Earth Colonial Medical Authority. The Lupra guard took a threatening step forward. You're making a serious mistake, human. There will be consequences. Kate was already activating the emergency anti-gravity stretcher she'd called in. The only mistake here was made years ago when you abandoned him. I'm fixing it. As she carefully maneuvered the stretcher under the massive creature, she felt him looking at her. Really looking at her. And for the first time since she'd found him, she saw something other than resignation in those pale eyes. She saw hope. Part 2, The Human Way. Kate's small medical clinic looked like a disaster zone. Equipment covered every available surface. Cables snaked across the floor. Holographic displays flickered with data streams that made her head hurt. She'd been staring at the same scans for 3 hours, and the news just kept getting worse. The albino Lupra lay on her surgical table, sedated but still trembling. Through a basic translation device, she'd learned his name was Kesh. He was 42 years old in human terms. He'd been alone for most of his life. But right now, Kate wasn't thinking about his past. She was thinking about whether he even had a future. This can't be right, she muttered, zooming in on the neural scans. Her hands were shaking slightly. She'd seen a lot in her career but nothing like this. Her assistant Tyler poked his head into the room. He was young, barely 25, still finishing his xenobiology degree. Dr. Wilson? You need to see this. Kate looked at the screen he was holding. Her stomach dropped. The barnacles aren't just parasites, she said slowly, her mind racing through the implications. They're connected to each other. They're sharing information. They're a hive mind. Tyler's face went pale. You mean they're intelligent? Worse than that. They're feeding directly on his neural pathways. Look here. Kate pointed to the scan. These connections go straight into his brainstem, his cortex, his entire nervous system. They're not just killing him. They're eating his mind. His memories. His personality. Everything that makes him, him. How long does he have? Kate ran the calculations. Without intervention? 2 weeks. Maybe 3. And with intervention? She was quiet for a long moment. Removing these will take months. The surgery alone will be incredibly complex. And the pain. She trailed off. The pain would be unimaginable. The barnacles had grown into nerve clusters. Every single one that came out would feel like fire. Tyler set down his tablet. Dr. Wilson, the station administration called. Again. They've filed an official complaint with the Galactic Council. The Lupra government is threatening legal action. They're demanding we return Kesh to their custody. For what? So they can kill him properly this time? They're saying we're violating cultural sovereignty. And there's more. Tyler hesitated. They're threatening trade sanctions against human colonies in this sector if we don't comply. Kate didn't even look up from her work. Tell them no. Dr. Wilson. Tell them no, Tyler. Kesh stays here. Tyler nodded and left. Kate went back to her scans, trying to figure out how to save someone that everyone else had decided wasn't worth saving. That's when the messages started coming in. The first one arrived that evening. A human neural surgeon named Dr. Lisa Chen sent a short video from the Mars colony. Heard about what you're doing. I've got experience with parasitic neural integration. Catching the next transport. Should be there in 3 days. The second message came an hour later. This is Mike Patterson. Retired military medic. Served in the Outer Rim conflicts. I've pulled people back from worse than this. Sending my credentials. I'm coming to help. By morning, Kate had received 17 messages. Humans from all over the station and beyond were volunteering. Offering supplies. Offering expertise. Offering their time. That's what humans did. When someone was suffering, when someone needed help, they showed up. It didn't matter if it was logical. It didn't matter if it was profitable. It didn't matter what anyone else thought. They showed up. Dr. Lisa Chen arrived first, a tall woman with sharp eyes and steady hands. She looked at the scans for about 30 seconds before rolling up her sleeves. All right. This is going to be interesting. When do we start? Mike Patterson showed up next with 3 crates of medical supplies. He was older, maybe 60, with gray hair and a limp from an old injury. Someone's got to keep you young folks from getting yourselves killed while you play hero, he said with a slight grin. Then came Danny Rodriguez, an engineer who specialized in custom fabrication. He took one look at Kate's surgical tools and shook his head. These won't work. The barnacles are too small, too deep. You need precision equipment that doesn't exist yet. Give me 2 days. The alien community watched all of this with complete confusion. They couldn't understand why humans would risk so much for a creature that even its own species had rejected. A Lupra diplomat arrived on the 3rd day. He was tall and imposing, his gray fur perfectly groomed, flanked by 2 armed guards. He stood in Kate's clinic looking down at Kesh with barely concealed disgust. Dr. Wilson, you are interfering with natural law and thousands of years of cultural tradition, the diplomat said coldly. The albino must be returned to our custody for proper disposition. Kate faced him across the medical bay. Kesh lay sedated on the table between them, his white fur and barnacle-covered body looking small and fragile despite his size. We have a principle in human medicine, Kate said quietly. First, do no harm. That means every sentient being deserves care and compassion, no matter how they were born. No matter what anyone else thinks of them. The diplomat's expression hardened. Your human sentimentality is going to cause serious diplomatic problems. You're risking trade relationships, economic partnerships, political stability. For what? For a genetic defect that should have died years ago. Kate met his eyes steadily. If that's what it takes, then yes. You're a fool. Maybe, Kate said. But he's not dying alone in a garbage dump. Not while I can help him. The diplomat turned and left, his guards following. Kate knew this wasn't over. The pressure would increase. The threats would get worse. But looking around at the other humans who'd come to help, at Lisa studying neural pathways, at Mike organizing supplies, at Danny building impossible tools, Kate felt something she hadn't felt in days. Oh, they were going to save Kesh. Whatever it took. That was the human way. Part 3, Breaking Point. 3 weeks had passed since Kate brought Kesh to her clinic. 3 weeks of surgeries that lasted 12, 14, sometimes 16 hours. 3 weeks of watching him scream in pain as each barnacle came free from his nervous system. 3 weeks of small victories and devastating setbacks. The good news was they were winning. 60% of the barnacles were gone. Kesh was stronger. He could sit up now. He could speak through the translator device that Lisa had carefully implanted in his brainstem. The bad news was everything else. Kate was in the middle of reviewing scans when the station administrator walked into her clinic. His name was Kill 7. A Nexian whose crystalline body chimed softly with each movement. He was holding a holographic display that glowed an official-looking red. Dr. Kate Wilson, he announced in his musical voice. By order of the Galactic Council and in direct response to multiple complaints filed by the Lupra Sovereignty, you are hereby ordered to immediately cease all medical procedures on the albino Lupra. You have 48 hours to remand the creature to Lupra custody. Kate didn't even look up from her microscope. No. The Nexian's body made a discordant chime of surprise. This is not a request, Dr. Wilson. This is a formal order from the highest governing body in known space. Still no. Perhaps you don't understand the severity of the situation, Kill 7 continued, his voice taking on an edge. The Lupra government has threatened to impose complete trade sanctions on all human colonies in this sector. That's 17 worlds. Millions of people. Your own diplomatic corps has contacted me personally. They're requesting, no, they're demanding your compliance. Kate finally looked up. Her eyes were bloodshot from lack of sleep. Her hands had a slight tremor from too much caffeine and not enough rest. And I'm telling you no. Write that down in your official report. Your medical license has been suspended pending a full Galactic Council review. If you continue these procedures, you will face criminal charges. Imprisonment. Your career will be over. The administrator leaned closer. Is this creature really worth destroying everything you've worked for? Kate met his crystalline gaze with steel in her own eyes. You don't get it, do you? This isn't about my career. This isn't about trade sanctions or diplomatic relations. This is about doing what's right. And what's right is saving Kesh's life. Kill 7 stood there for a moment, his body chiming in what might have been confusion or frustration. Then he turned and left without another word. The deadline hung over the clinic like a storm cloud. 48 hours. 2 days to decide whether to save a life or save her career. That night, Kate sat beside Kesh's recovery bed. The lights were dimmed. Most of the equipment had been powered down for the night cycle. It was quiet except for the soft beeping of monitors. Kesh was awake. He'd been awake more and more lately. The translator device let him understand human language now, and he'd been learning to speak it himself. "Kate," he said, his voice rough and uncertain. Each word seemed to cost him effort. "Why? Why what? Why do this, for me?" He shifted slightly, and she could see the patches of white fur where barnacles had been removed. Healthy fur growing back clean. "You risk everything. Your job. Your freedom. Why?" Kate was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Tell me your story, Kesh. All of it. I want to understand." And so he told her. He told her about the moment he was born, how the medical attendants had recoiled in horror at his white fur. How his mother had refused to look at him. How his father had demanded he be terminated immediately as a genetic defect. The elders had decided to let him live, but only because there was an old law that forbade killing newborns outright. Instead, they would let nature take its course. He grew up alone. Other cubs wouldn't play with him. Adults wouldn't touch him. He was fed the minimum to survive and nothing more. No comfort. No affection. No belonging. When he reached adolescence, the elders formally cast him out. They held a ceremony where they declared him cursed by the ancestors. They stripped him of his family name. They told him he was no longer Lupra. He was nothing. "I was 15 years old and you're counting," Kesh said quietly. "I didn't understand why I was wrong. I was just different." He told her about the years that followed. Wandering from station to station trying to find work, trying to find a place. But word spread fast. Lupra were everywhere in the galaxy, and they made sure everyone knew to avoid the albino. The cursed one. Other species didn't want to get involved. It was a Lupra cultural matter. Not their problem. "The barnacles started small," Kesh continued. "Just 1 or 2. I tried to remove them myself but they hurt too much. They grew. More came. Years passed. I stopped trying to fight them. I stopped trying to live. I just waited to die." His pale blue eyes met Kate's. "I found that disposal area 3 months ago. I went there to die. Away from everyone. Where no one would have to see the cursed one's body." His voice cracked slightly. "Then you found me. Why did you help me?" he asked again. "Your people lose much. I am nothing. I am cursed. Everyone says this. Why do you not see it?" Kate reached out and gently placed her hand on his massive paw. "Because you're not cursed, Kesh. You're just different. And on Earth we have a saying, we're all different, and that's what makes us beautiful. You're not nothing. You're someone who deserves to live. Someone who deserves kindness. Someone who deserves a chance." Kesh was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something that nearly broke her heart. "I do not want to go back to them." "You won't," Kate promised. "I won't let them take you. But you will lose everything." "Then I lose everything," Kate said simply. "Some things are more important than careers and licenses. You're more important." The 48 hours ticked away. Kate knew Lupra security forces were gathering outside the station. She knew human diplomats were frantically trying to negotiate. She knew her team was scared. But none of that mattered. Kesh mattered. And Kate wasn't backing down. Part 4, The Stand. Kate knew she needed help. Real help. Not just medical help, but the kind of help that came from making noise and refusing to be ignored. So she made a video. She sat in her clinic with Kesh visible in the background, recovering on his medical bed. She looked tired. She looked angry. And she looked determined. "My name is Dr. Kate Wilson," she began. 3 weeks ago, I found a dying Lupra in the waste disposal section of this station. His name is Kesh. He's an albino, which means his own people threw him away like garbage. I'm trying to save his life, and now the Galactic Council is ordering me to hand him over so he can be executed. I'm not going to do that. If you believe that every sentient being deserves a chance to live, share this message. Let everyone know what's happening here." She posted the video on every human network she could access. Then she went back to work. What happened next surprised everyone, including Kate. Within 6 hours, the video had been shared 10,000 times. Within 12 hours, it had reached Earth. Within a day, it had exploded across every human colony in known space. Humans responded the way humans always did when they saw injustice. They got angry and then they took action. 12 merchant ships changed their routes and headed straight for Nexus 7. Captains sent messages saying they were coming to help. Mining vessels, trading ships, even a small passenger liner carrying 100 colonists diverted course. On the station itself, the human community mobilized. There weren't many of them, maybe 300 humans total among the thousands of aliens. But they organized fast. Miners who'd finished their shifts came to stand guard outside Kate's clinic. Traders brought food and supplies. Engineers set up better security systems. Families sent messages of support. They created a rotating schedule so someone was always there, always watching, always ready to protect Kesh. Messages flooded in from everywhere. From Earth itself, from the Mars colonies, from the mining stations around Jupiter, from distant outposts Kate had never even heard of. Thousands of humans saying the same thing: "We support you. Don't back down." But the pressure from the other side increased too. The Lupra government issued an official ultimatum. Return the Albino within 24 hours or face complete trade embargo against all human colonies in the sector. That meant 17 worlds. Millions of people who depended on trade to survive. Several other alien species publicly sided with the Lupra, citing cultural sovereignty and non-interference doctrines. The Nexians said it was a resource allocation issue. The Chittics said it was about respecting ancient traditions. The galactic economy started to shake as everyone waited to see what would happen. Then Earth's ambassador made a statement that changed everything. The message was broadcast on every official channel. Ambassador Helen Park stood in front of the Earth flag and spoke with quiet authority. Effective immediately, Earth and all human colonies will cease all trade with any species that supports the forced return of asylum seekers to face execution. We will not be complicit in state-sanctioned murder of the vulnerable. This is not negotiable. The galaxy had never seen anything like it. Humans weren't a dominant military power. They weren't the oldest civilization. They didn't have the biggest empire. But they controlled critical supply chains. Rare minerals that only human miners knew how to extract efficiently. Agricultural products that fed billions. Medical innovations. Engineering solutions. Technology that made modern galactic life possible. If humanity walked away from trade, the economic impact would be catastrophic. Within hours, species started reconsidering their positions. Quietly at first, then more openly. The Nexians announced they were remaining neutral. The Chittics suddenly discovered they had concerns about due process. While the political situation exploded around them, Kate and her team prepared for the final surgery. Lisa stood over the latest scans, her face grim. This is it. The last cluster. It's wrapped around his cerebral cortex like a vine around a tree. If we don't remove it, the hive mind will kill him within a week. How long will it take? Kate asked, though she already knew the answer wouldn't be good. 18 hours minimum, Mike said from across the room. Maybe longer if we run into complications. And Kate, he'll need to be conscious for part of it. We can't risk full sedation when we're working that close to his higher brain functions. Kate felt her stomach drop. The pain will be unimaginable, Lisa finished quietly. We can manage some of it with nerve blocks and medication, but not all of it. Not even close. They all turned to look at Kesh, who'd been listening from his bed. His pale blue eyes were clear and focused. "I trust you," he said simply. His voice was stronger now than it had been weeks ago. "I trust you all." Kate walked over and sat beside him. "Kesh, you need to understand what we're asking of you. This is going to hurt more than anything you've experienced. The Barnacles are going to fight back. They're going to flood your system with toxins. We'll be cutting into the most sensitive parts of your brain. You'll be awake for some of it." "I understand," Kesh said. "But if I stay like this, I die." "Yes. Yes. And if I go back to my people, I die." "Yes. Then we do surgery." He looked at each of them in turn. "You gave me life when no one else would. You saw me as person, not monster. I trust you with my life because you already saved it." Outside the clinic, Lupra warships moved into position around the station. But human ships formed a defensive line between them. The whole galaxy was watching. Waiting. Kate took a deep breath. "All right. Let's save his life. One more time." Part 5, A New Pack. 2 months had passed since the surgery that should have been impossible. 2 months since Kate and her team spent 23 hours straight fighting to remove the last barnacles from Kesh's brain. 2 months since he'd flatlined twice on the table and Mike had brought him back both times through sheer stubborn refusal to accept death. Now Kesh stood in the middle of Kate's clinic, his white fur gleaming clean and healthy for the first time in his entire life. He wore a vest that Danny had custom-made for him, fitted with pockets containing medical supplies. He was helping Kate examine a Chittick merchant who'd injured one of his many limbs in a loading accident. "Hold still," Kesh said gently in the clicking language of the Chittick. "This will sting, but only for a moment." The merchant relaxed. Something about Kesh's calm presence made patients feel safe. Maybe it was because he understood suffering in a way most beings didn't. The galaxy had changed since what everyone now called the Kesh incident. Not dramatically. Not overnight. But slowly, like ice melting under a spring sun. Debates erupted on dozens of worlds about genetic differences and how societies treated those born different. The Nexian Medical Academy, impressed by human medical ethics, introduced an entire new curriculum based on the principle that all sentient life deserved care. 3 alien species quietly reformed their laws regarding genetic mutations and birth defects. Most importantly, young aliens who felt like outcasts in their own society started showing up at human stations and colonies. They came looking for something their own people wouldn't give them: acceptance. The chance to be seen as unique rather than shameful. The Lupra government never apologized for what they'd done to Kesh. They never acknowledged they'd been wrong. But they did stop exiling albino children. It happened without fanfare or official announcement. They just stopped. And that was enough. Sometimes small victories were the only victories you got. Kate was reviewing patient files on her datapad when Tyler rushed into the clinic. His face had that expression that meant complicated news was coming. "Dr. Wilson, we've got a situation at the docking bay." Kate looked up. "What kind of situation?" "There's a delegation from the Arachnid Collective. They've brought one of their own with them. Someone born with what they're calling a shameful mutation." Kate felt that familiar mix of exhaustion and determination flooding through her. What kind of mutation? Extra limb configuration. 8 legs instead of the normal 6. Their culture says it makes them unable to fulfill traditional social roles. They can't do the work their people consider honorable. Tyler paused. "The delegation leaders say they won't treat the condition themselves. But they've heard about what we did for Kesh. They're asking if humans can help." Kate closed her eyes for a moment. Here we go again, she thought. She looked over at Kesh, who was carefully organizing surgical instruments with the methodical precision he'd developed over the past months. He'd heard everything. Their eyes met. Those pale blue eyes that had once held nothing but resignation now held something entirely different. Purpose. Determination. Hope. Kesh nodded slowly. "Tell them yes," Kate said, standing up. Her back protested. Too many long surgeries had taken their toll. "Tell them we'll see their patient. And Tyler? Start making calls. We're going to need more space, more equipment, and probably more help." 20 minutes later, the Arachnid delegation entered the clinic. They were tall, spindly creatures with hard exoskeletons that shimmered in colors Kate couldn't quite name. They moved with jerky, uncertain motions. Behind them came the patient. The Arachnid moved awkwardly on 8 legs instead of 6, clearly struggling to coordinate the extra limbs. Their head was down, body language screaming shame and fear. Kate stepped forward. "Welcome to our clinic. I'm Dr. Kate Wilson." The lead delegate spoke in translated human language. "We bring one who is malformed. Our medical tradition says such mutations are signs of spiritual corruption. We cannot help it without bringing shame to our people. But we have heard what humans did for the cursed Lupra. We come to see if you would, if you could. If we could help someone your people have given up on?" Kate finished gently. "Yes, that's what we do." Mike was already pulling up a scanner. Lisa started running preliminary diagnostic tests. Danny was sketching designs for adaptive equipment that might help with the extra limbs. Then Kesh did something that made Kate's heart swell with pride. He walked over to the frightened Arachnid and spoke in their language, something he'd been studying for weeks. "You are safe here. These humans saved me when my own people left me to die. They will save you too." They see worth where others see only shame. The Arachnid's whole body seemed to relax. "You were the albino Lupra. The cursed one." "I was," Kesh said. "Now I am just Kesh. And I help save others. You can too after they help you." Kate pulled up her medical systems and started reviewing the preliminary scans. The extra limbs were fully functional but poorly integrated into the Arachnid's nervous system. Fixable. Difficult but fixable. Outside the clinic windows, the station bustled with life from 100 different worlds. Ships came and went, carrying cargo, passengers, and dreams across the stars. Somewhere out there, human vessels traveled between colonies, carrying with them something more valuable than any trade goods. They carried a simple idea that was slowly changing the galaxy. Every sentient being has worth. Every life deserves a chance. No one gets left behind. Humans weren't the strongest species in the galaxy. They weren't the smartest or the most advanced. They didn't have the biggest empire or the longest history. Other species had better technology, stronger militaries, older civilizations. But humans had something those others didn't understand. They had compassion that didn't calculate cost. They had determination that didn't accept impossible as an answer. They had a bone-deep belief that every person mattered regardless of how they were born. The galaxy was learning that sometimes the strongest thing wasn't weapons or technology. Sometimes it was simply refusing to give up on someone everyone else had abandoned. Kate looked around her clinic, at Mike preparing examination equipment, at Lisa reviewing medical histories, at Danny already building solutions to problems that didn't have names yet, and at Kesh standing tall and proud, ready to help save the next outcast who needed them. "All right," Kate said, pulling up a treatment plan. "Let's get to work." Outside, the galaxy turned. And humanity's watch continued. No one gets left behind. Not on their watch.